State University. I'm actually a returning student. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself. I am 34 years old. So, again, I'm a returning student. I lost my vision 7 years ago due to diabetes. I'm a type 1 diabetic. And, it was kind of getting used to doing things non visually. I went to training at Blind Industries and Services of Maryland, where I got my skills in Braille and technology and travel, independent living, so how to live as a blind person. Um, and I started school back to finish up my degree in theater studies. That's what I'm majoring in, and possibly going to do a majors program in theater studies as well. Um, as far as assistive technology, um, when I first started learning how to use assistive technology, it was pretty difficult coming from a visual world. It was a whole new ballpark for me to learn how to navigate the computer, use my phone non-visually. It was almost too daunting to even want to do, but I knew I had to do it if I wanted to be successful and do the things I always did, like, check Facebook, or, type my papers, or, send text messages, or web chats with friends and that sort of thing. So I had to force myself to do it. And it was, even to this day, I'm still practicing, making sure I'm up on my skills. Um, so some of the technologies I use are, I'm a big Apple product user because right out of the box, it's accessible with voiceover and things, so I can navigate the computer, navigate my phone. It's just very easy for me to use, even though sometimes the commands for Apple are a little daunting and complicated. Um, I also use JAWS, which is a PC based screen reader, as well as NVDA, which is also a PC based screen reader program that also helps me navigate and use my computer with ease. Um, as far as some troubles I've been having with technology, so to speak, it's not really with the designers of the software to make accessible per se, but the people that develop the software that the accessible technology is used for. So, like, for example, this semester, McGraw-Hill is a course that I'm using for my French class, and they don't understand what accessibility means. So I feel like that's the biggest problem for me with accessible technology to date, is the fact that companies don't understand what true accessibility means. So what I mean by that is, so when I log onto a page, what you see with your eyes, I should be able to hear everything that you can see with your eyes on my screen with my screen reader. And with McGraw-Hill this semester, it's been difficult because of, on one page it'll read the dialogue and on the next page it won't. And then with a page with all pictures, it doesn't have image descriptions built into the software where it'll tell me lady sitting at chair reading a book. It'll just say image, which they consider a perfect image description. It's just telling me that it's an image, where I don't understand still what's going on inside of the picture. um, Another problem I'm having with accessible technology, again, is with the developers of things and of books and such that say that things are accessible. I've been having trouble because I'm a theater major. Part of my classes are reading a lot of plays, and it's finding these plays in accessible formats because the companies that produce these plays say they're accessible, but then they give it to you in a form that's not accessible. And if it's a PDF, it's a locked PDF because they don't want you to tamper with the play or make any changes. But if you can't tamper with the PDF or make it accessible, it's no way I can read it. Again, it comes up as images. Um, those are the major problems I've been having with assistive technology. Other than that, it's just the little things like when Apple doesn't update, sometimes accessibility goes out the window for like a couple of weeks to a month, and then they kind of get on the ballpark and kind of fix those issues. The same thing with JAWS and NBVA, like little minute things that kind of get in the way of me doing what I need to do throughout the day, or in class, or just the regular things with life. And as far as, per se, assistive technology at home, so like accessible, because today in a lot of homes a lot of things are digital. A lot of the products that they make are not accessible as well, so it's kind of using, again, my phone, which has a image reader or a color identifier, or another app like Era, to kind of have a person there to kind of say, hey, that's the touch screen to turn it on, that's the touch screen to turn it off, and how to identify the buttons so I can label them so I can use them. I mean, that's pretty much the major problems that I'm having with assistive technology. But then again, it's about figuring out how to do. For me, it's about figuring out how to do it despite that. So I'm constantly finding ways to navigate that difficulty, even though it is a difficulty, to kind of still do and live the life that I want to live. So I mean, blindness is, what I'm living with, but I'm trying not to let it control my life. So I'm just keeping it moving and keeping my head up and doing what I can do to make things better, and let these people and the designers of these accessible technology and programs know where they're going right and where they're going wrong, to kind of make it better, not only for me, but for people in the future who need to use the same technology. So that's pretty much my short story, quick and easy. Of course, if you have any questions at the end, don't hesitate to ask me. I'm going to pass the mic over to Nick now.
Thank you for sharing. Hi, I'm Nick. I'm a freshman at McDaniel College. I found I was dyslexic in third grade, but even before then, my parents and I realized that I always needed extra help in school. Being in school and having other kids understand what we were learning in class was always difficult because I never understood what was going on. I always felt like everybody understood what was going on except for me. No matter how hard I tried, my grades never reflected my knowledge. A teacher could ask me a question about what we were learning, and I would have no problem explaining it. But when it came to classwork and tests, my knowledge never reflected the subject. I always felt like I was behind in school and was starting to disconnect. For a while, I didn't want to go to school because I just felt like everybody else was ahead of me. After getting tested for dyslexia, we finally had a name behind the reason why I was not understanding what was going on in school. With my new diagnosis of dyslexia, we knew that there was a reason behind my struggles and that there was also hope for me to be successful in school. Once I had my diagnosis for school, I was able to get an IEP for school. I got my IEP in third grade and used it all the way through high school. My IEP said I could use assistive technology, get questions read out loud during a test, extra time on tests and assignments. I didn't like to stand out with the assistive technology at first because I was always the kid with the laptop or the iPad reading with audiobooks. But after a while and after I got older, everybody had iPads and Chromebooks, so I fit right in. Even before my parents knew I was dyslexic or what assistive technology was, we realized that I needed more than just eye reading. I didn't know that there was more than one way of reading at first before I knew what dyslexia was. We were already recording with our own audiobooks with a camcorder, and I tried to be more independent. I remember that I had a book report on Milton Hershey when I was in second grade, and I wanted to be able to read the book by myself, but I couldn't do it on my own. We recorded my mom reading the book, and at the end of the page, I would say, turn the page. After that, I would play the recording and try to read by myself along. We were very excited when we found about Learning Ally and their audiobooks. Since then, I've used Learning Ally audiobooks for my textbooks and my required reading in school, and it's made a huge difference. I like that I can eye read and ear read at the same time, and it helps me understand the information a lot better. When I read, I seem to focus on what words I'm missing and not getting the main purpose of what I'm reading. When I use Learning Ally audiobooks, I like to change the background to black, the text to white, and the highlight to yellow. This combination helps me focus more on the information. There are a lot of combinations, but this works best for me. I also use a lot of low tech like post-it notes and different colors pens and pencils to highlight the work and the important information I need to know. I still use these things, but I use high-tech assistive technology like post-it notes on my laptop to keep me organized with the information that I need to know. I use highlighting on documents instead of highlighters now because it helps me highlight the important information for class. I learned what Quizlet was in fifth grade and been using that ever since. I use Quizlet for everything. For example, I use Quizlet for my lifeguard my certification. The book I got when I started my lifeguard training was huge, and I didn't think I was going to be able to remember what I needed to know. We found the Quizlet that other people made for the lifeguard test so it could help me study. The Quizlet was great because I was able to use sound and photos to help me understand the information. I was able to pass my lifeguard certification test and get a job that summer as a lifeguard. It makes it a lot more easier and fun to use assistive technology when studying. I use speech to text for just about everything. I go to my notes on my iPhone or iPad and start talking into my phone or iPad about what I want to say. And then I copy and paste my work into Google Docs and start to edit it. I use Grammarly to edit my work because it helps me with my grammar and spelling. Correct grammar is really important for me, especially now that I'm in college. I also use text to speech so that I can better understand the information in articles and websites. Some of the apps I use includes Adobe Scan and Seeing AI. I also have a scan marker which scans and saves information so I can edit it. Now that I'm in college, I use a SaaS office, Students Accessibility Support Services, because I'm in college and don't have an IEP, but I get extra accommodations like extra time and test assignments if I need it, and questions that read out loud to me or quiet testing rooms. I receive a letter from the SaaS office with my accommodations, and I email it to my professors at the beginning of the semester. I haven't I haven't had any issues with any of my professors yet. I think the extra support has changed is a game changer because it helps me be successful in college with the extra support. Starting in eighth grade, I was a Learning Out Yes ambassador, youth examples of self advocacy. I was able to meet other kids with learning differences, and it was great to find with people who were like me. We learned how to advocate for ourselves and others and how to effectively communicate to our teachers about accommodations and what helped us learn. I've had opportunities to do many presentations about dyslexia and assistive technology, and I'm part of the LDA's STAMP program, which is Students Teaching Advocacy through Mentoring Programs. This program will allow me to continue mentoring and advocating for students with learning differences. From what I've experienced, it doesn't matter how good the assistive technology is if you don't know how to use it or advocate for yourself. There's always something new coming out with assistive technology. So try new things and don't be afraid to tell other people about it. My goal after college is to be able to advocate for students with learning differences. And I want to be the voice that I never had growing up and help students with learning differences. Thank you. So now I'll be turning it over to Lance.
Hi, Lance.
Hello. I wrote a few things ahead of time. Hello, I wrote a few things ahead of time. Hello, my name is Lance Mclemore. I am a 35-year-old man living in Alabama. I have autism and severe verbal apraxia. I have used a high-tech AAC system since I was about 24. Right now I use an AAC device made by the Keromic company called an Accent 1000. My journey might be unusual compared to most others. As far as I can remember, my speech and language development was normal. I went to school like everyone else, and there was not really anything remarkable about my education. I would say I was a mediocre student. When I was about 11 or so, I started having problems with my speech. It was subtle at first. Over the next several years, it gradually deteriorated. I knew what I wanted to say, but I couldn't make my mouth do as I wanted. It's like the words would get stuck. And when they did come out, they didn't sound right. When I got to college, I started to realize that it was becoming a problem. I avoided interacting in classes, and I hardly talked to anyone outside of class because it was too difficult. I was in the library one day and I found a book about assistive technology, and there was a chapter about AAC. I wondered if that was something that could help me. I transferred to another university. I think it's accurate to say that it was probably the loneliest period of my life. I have never felt so isolated as I did at that time. The pain and frustration was at times so overwhelming. To this day, it is one of the greatest regrets of my life that I was never able to form any friendships in university. I feel like I missed out on a lot. Even after I got my first AAC system at the age of 24, things didn't really get better because it wasn't a good system for me. I really missed out on building the relationships that most people can have and take for granted. One of the things that I think many educators and speech language pathologists get wrong about AAC is that they don't focus enough on teaching AAC users how to build relationships. We don't need AAC just so we can tell you what day it is or what we want to drink. Communication is so much more than that. As a speaking person, how would you feel if the only thing you can do with communication is ask for things or be tested? Would that be good enough for you? I'm guessing the answer is no. So if it's not good enough for you, then it should not be good enough for us. Without relationships, life is an endlessly dull and futile existence, when devoid of color, unbearable. I talk very often about the importance of relationships, and if anybody takes away anything I've said here today, I want them to understand that communication might have to start with simple answers and requesting, but it's just the beginning, not the end. Expect more, hope for more, and push gently so they can go further and further. Remember that you don't know the future, you don't know what they can do, so don't cripple them with low expectations. We deserve better than that. We deserve better than that. That's all I have to say. And now I want to hand it over to Amy. That's all I have to say, and now I want to hand it over to Amy.
Okay, well, thank you everyone for coming. And my name is Amy Albin. I am a senior at Montclair State University. I'm about to graduate at the end of the semester. I'm 22 years old, and I'm a psychology major, and I'm going to be studying industrial and organizational psychology. And I am also blind, but I have been totally blind since birth. I will talk about some of the assistive or access technology I use. The one I use most frequently is JAWS. Elizabeth was talking about that. JAWS is the program that you install on a Windows computer, and it reads the screen to you, and also it allows you to interact with the screen using the keyboard. I use this program for almost all of my homework, my assignments, tests, checking my email, going online, things like that. Very useful. And I also have an iPhone where I use VoiceOver. That's the same sort of thing. It's just the Apple's version of the screen reader. It's a different screen reader that's built into the phone. So I use that for texting people, calling people. And I also have some apps that I use on the iPhone. I use the app Ira, which is where you connect to a live trained agent, and they can help you, like they can help me navigate any accessibility barriers I'm having. If I want to know what something says on the screen, if I want to know how I can navigate an inaccessible website, they can actually access my computer and perform the task that I ask them to. I also use an app called Blind Square, which is a GPS app that is accessible and that can tell me what direction I'm facing and how far my destination is. I also use a device called a Braille Note Touch by Humanware. So this is a device that actually creates electronic Braille, so that if I want to actually read, or if I want to, if I'm giving a presentation and I want to read something or know how something is spelled, I can use the Braille Note, although I do usually use JAWS. And finally, I also use Learning Ally, like Nick. I use Learning Ally, and I also use something called Bookshare, and both of those are programs that allow for accessible books, both textbooks and leisure books. So now I'm going to talk about some of the problems that can be faced when using accessible technology. So basically, what Elizabeth said, screen readers are not magic. It's not just like you can have JAWS or VoiceOver and the website will be accessible. Websites have to be programmed a certain way to make them accessible. And a lot of web developers do not do that. There are guidelines, web content accessibility guidelines, and there's different versions of those. A lot of developers either don't know about them or don't use them. And I found this to be a particular problem to find accessible mathematical content. So in the field I want to study, industrial and organizational psychology, it is a very quantitative field because you do a lot of tests, measurements, statistics, and I am working on finding a solution to meet my statistical needs. It is still a work in progress, but it is always hard for me to find textbooks that display the mathematical content correctly. Even in Bookshare, which is one of the websites that gives you accessible textbooks, I personally still find that the math sometimes is not displayed correctly. In fact, very oftentimes the math is not displayed correctly. So a lot of times it means that I need to listen extremely carefully to my professor when they say something and then take very, very detailed notes, because that's the only way I'm going to get the information or the formula that I need. Because even on a website, if I go to look on a website, the formulas might not be accessible there. They might be images. One example is a lot of times, instead of saying x squared, the screen reader will read to me x2, which is completely incorrect. So a lot of times I have to guess or infer that it's x squared based on the context. Shouldn't be that way. But it's not just math, it is other issues as well. So what is the solution for inaccessible technology? I think part of the solution goes to us as consumers with disabilities. We have a responsibility to educate developers and companies and universities. It also falls on developers to develop accessible websites and content. And it also is the responsibility of employers and providers of education, such as universities, high schools, elementary schools, etc., to make sure that the educational or the job content that they are requiring is accessible, and that if it's not accessible to one person, that they shouldn't be requiring it of most people. So yeah, it's the responsibility is on us as consumers with disabilities, on the developers, and on the customers of the sort of large scale customers, employers and schools, to make sure that technology is accessible. And before I close, sort of a quote that I have about disability is, if a human found themselves in a society of flying robins, the humans would all be disabled. Thank you. And is Alan here?
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you, Amy. That's a very nice quote. I want to make, I was late getting on, so I want to make sure the sound check, like, can somebody let me know that you can hear me clearly, please?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That's a difficult person to follow. It's very pointed. So my name is Alan Sheffield. I'm a 37-year-old, I do the math, yeah, 37-year-old male, like I go by he, him, his. I work as Director of Disability Services at Rutgers University, New York. Since I was 15 months old, I've had a hearing loss. I'm completely deaf in my left ear and have a severe loss in my right. And as an adult, I've been diagnosed with depression and ADHD. So all my life, I've identified as somebody who is disabled. And my progression, I progressed from somebody with hearing, who was hearing impaired, to somebody with a hearing loss or is hard of hearing. And that has to do with a lot of my experiences I had, especially related to assistive technology. From a very young age, like my experience was of trying to fit into a world that was not built for or accepting of me, and internalizing that everything, all my experiences were because of, and challenges were because of me. So professor or teacher choosing not having an FM system, but teachers choosing not to wear it. Oh, I have to be the one to try to figure out what's going on. So that was in, like, as a preschooler and kindergartner. And eventually teachers just stopped wearing FM systems, and it stopped being a part of my educational plan. And like not having captions, tests based on audio components, having to put on headphones that would actually interact with my hearing aid in a way that would make loud screeching noises. So I'm trying to deal with that while trying to listen to the material that's expected of me. So it is very tiring to exist in this kind of world, but also a world that is, there was a whole nother world I didn't know about. So I'm trying to create my own solutions for things like waking up in the morning. Played music loud enough that it would shake the house. My sister was not a fan. Our room was right next to mine. And so I came up with a solution where I bought a light that went, like, that had a long arm that went over my face. And I put well, a way timer, like one of those ones that you set up to, when you're leaving the house, to make it look like you're home, and set that up. And I would use that, like, to go off in the morning, not exact, but it would tell, like, I'd try to set it up and have that light go off. So I'd hit my head a few times, or when I wake up and forget that that light was over my head. Phones, I abhorred using them. And then I had my first cell phone was, for many years, was 10 minutes a month for emergencies only. Like, pretty much would call my parents if there was something going on. It wasn't until Sidekick came out and I started to learn about the deaf community and meet other people like me. And I was like, wait a minute, okay, there is technology out there. There's vibrating beds and vibrating alarms to help me wake up in the morning in a way that does not disrupt those around me. There is like safety mechanisms, like doorbells that have vibrating and visual alerts. I started using those right away. Fire alarms that were built to visual and vibro tactile as well. So that I didn't realize this world existed until very late, much later in life, and when I was in college. So and then now we're reaching a point where I work in the field as well as I'm an individual who's trying to use. So we have things like automated captioning. For a large part of my life, I didn't like going to the movies. Or if I went, I wanted to go to an action movie where I could be visually stimulated, knowing that I was not going to catch what was going on most of the time. And for a long time, like they would do caption showings at a time where somebody who was a college student or working person would not be able to go. It'd be Wednesdays at like 10 a.m. That would be the only caption showing for the week. So like I stopped going to the theater, and I stopped putting that as a thing that I did as an individual. And then I found out when I went to Gallaudet that, oh wait, there was actually caption showings on the regular now. And this points to something that I think I've encountered. It's not enough to do something. Many people who are disabled because of the environment have built their lives around avoiding the constant barriers because of fatigue, because it's just, it's too much. So like if you build something, you need to make sure that people know and give time for them to be able to start going. So provide interpreters to a play. The first time we kind of did that at a university, they stopped, like nobody came. But it took time, word of mouth, and people go, oh, okay, now I'll start looking at this. So that's something that is critical that I found. Captions, like thankful for the captions that we have today. These are example of automated captioning. Automated captions for much of my existence before COVID were a bane, both personal and professional, because they're not good. I think with COVID, there's been a dramatic increase in the accuracy of automated captioning because of, I think, the amount of data that they have now. But they are still not a truly effective way of providing access, but they do allow me another way to participate. So like my phone, my new phone, actually Google has it built in. So I could turn on automated captions right now for everything other than phone, like actual phone calls or video calls. So if I have a video, it automatically pops up that I can use them. And that never was possible before. I also utilize, like with the new hearing aid technology, I went full circle from as a K through 12 person hating an FM system to having one now. It's a small microphone remote that connects and allows me to connect with things like phones, my TV by adding a Bluetooth adapter. So it gives me the ability to have sound put directly into my hearing aid, which allows me to use the technology that I have versus trying to like put headphones in. And that has been like life-saving, I would say, like really, because it allows me to be more connected with the world around me. It allows me to like participate in things like this, where before I'd be struggling, wouldn't be captioning, and I'd be trying to listen to sound being pumped out by speakers. I can now have it directly to my ear. And that really is a critical thing. I can mute the rest of the world around me. So like that was when it first happened. I was like, I want nothing to do with this FM system, but then realized like it slowly got used to it. And now in my role, we work to try to make the university accessible for students and try to remove a lot of the barriers that everybody else who talked about. And I think Amy actually touched on this. One of the biggest struggles is that software designers, developers, they they're not beholden to the ADA. They're not having to design things accessibly. The universities that buy from them are. So it is incumbent upon universities to put pressure on and say, like, we need accessible versions of this. But that's not what's happening. And the laws need to change to say you need to design your products to be accessible from the start, rather than creating a world that is inaccessible and expecting people who are disabled by that world to adapt to it. So that's where, please, if you're, when you're thinking about things, and I know everybody else has already said it, but it can't be said enough, make sure that what you're doing is accessible, so that somebody does not have to go that extra step or does not have to try to find a solution, because it's tiring enough. And it shouldn't have to be that every single experience is yet another challenge. So make sure that you're thinking about how can I make life more easier and more accessible, because yeah, people are going to make it work. They're going to figure out a way, but it gets tiring. And make sure that they can participate with dignity rather than constantly having to fight. So, and that is a picture of River, a cat that I just adopted during COVID to help with depression. As an example of something that I use and has helped me through COVID times and separation. And I sent that to Naomi when she asked for a picture, because she didn't ask for a picture of me originally. So that's why there's a picture of the cat there. And thank you.
Thank you, everyone. This has been really great. Right now, I am going to open up the floor for questions. Please feel free to put questions in the chat box or turn on your mics. Does anyone have any questions? And the panelists, please feel free to ask questions of each other too. Someone just asked, would there be a recording provided? Yes, we are recording this, and everyone who signed up will get a recording. Anyone have questions of the panelists?
I actually, I don't, Naomi, can you hear me? This is Lisa.
Yes, Lisa.
Hi.
Hi.
I don't actually have a question, but I just wanted to say thank you for the panelists sharing their stories. They are absolutely inspiring, but I also want to share, I work with teens that have Tourette syndrome. And one of our things that we do is we do presentations in schools where the kids share their stories. And so my point being is that this is really important, I believe, and it takes a lot of courage to be honest and share your story. So I just want to say thank you so much for doing this. I think it can help a lot of people, and so thank you for doing what you're doing.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for coming. We do have a question. Is there a correlation between disability and depression, do you think?
I'll answer that. I think it can be. Like someone said, if you don't have the proper support, or the proper support system at home or with friends or with like the institutions and things you're trying to do, I think it can lead to depression. I also suffer from depression. And I think it started definitely from blindness in the beginning, but then of course other things I have going on as well. But I think it can be that way because of the lack of support from either family, friends, or institutions and people telling you what you can't do, knowing that you can do it. You just need to find a way to do it. So yeah, I think there is a correlation between it.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Elizabeth.
Can I just make a comment on that?
Yes.
And I want to know what Elizabeth and Alan have to say about it. When I hear that question, I think, it's an interesting question, because depression is a disability, correct?
Correct.
No, I think, well, one, so how I look at disability is that we all have mental, physical, or medical conditions happening. Disability is what happens when the world is not designed in an accessible way. So the barriers create and have us be or create, make us disabled, but we are not necessarily have a disability. So if we're in an accessible world, then we won't have a disability. And I think what Elizabeth was saying was, and Amy were pointing out that it's the constant barriers that happen. It's the presence of them that can lead to depression and be a cause of or contribute to. But yeah, you're right. Like, and there's that mindset of, but Amy, like we were saying that like hidden disability or hidden conditions versus the thing that people often think about, like blindness, deafness, wheelchair, and not
That's what I was
actually
going
bringing
for.
everything together. Yeah, no, I agree. A lot of people come to my office, talk about one thing, and then don't even realize anxiety, depression are things that are can have an impact on functioning in the school environment and would be considered to be a disability.
Thank you, Alan. Do any of the other panelists want to chime in on that question?
Yes, I know that for me personally, I had depression in university. I was so isolated because I didn't really have a way to communicate. I know that for me personally, I had depression in university. I was so isolated because I didn't really have a way to communicate.
Thank you, Lance. And that's true.
I can just make a little comment. When I was speaking, I said like when I was younger, I'd kind of disconnected from school due to, you know, being dyslexic, but not knowing and always being behind everybody. That at a very young age made me not want to be in a situation every day where I wasn't successful and where I was struggling constantly and feeling dumb. So maybe I wasn't depressed when I was younger, but it could have led to, you know, it was definitely a warning sign of me not, you know, wanting to go to school, me not enjoying it because of me always being behind and feeling stupid. So
True. Understand. Thank you, Nick. Thank you for sharing. Okay, we have the next question. How best to educate professors at colleges on disability?
Ooh, that's a big question.
Yes, really big.
I'll take it from my perspective. So this semester, I've actually had 3 of my instructors say I was the first blind person they've ever had in their class, which is great and terrifying all at the same time because they did not know what accessibility was. They didn't know what I needed per se to get through the class and what, you know, to be successful in that class. So for me, I would educate them on what I need because I feel like each person is going to have different needs. Just like I'm blind, there are different levels of blindness. Whereas I need, you know, audio files, somebody may only need large print. So it just depends on, I think, an individual to kind of advocate on what they need to the instructor and to the institution. But also, I think it should be like a general kind of get together with institutions and like, okay, this is blindness, this is way blindness can show up, this is way, you know, certain disabilities can show up, and how, you know, how you can start to communicate, because a lot of reasons why people don't know about disability is because they're uncomfortable around it, they're uncomfortable talking about it, they're uncomfortable being around people with a disability. um, it's kind of getting that comfort level to a point where they don't feel ashamed or feel scared about asking a person, or a person even identifying that they have a disability, to get that conversation going. Because the only way you can kind of educate is if people are willing to learn, and if people are willing to actually talk, like we're telling our story so we can inform you guys. People willing to talk about what's going on and maybe some solutions on how to fix it. So that's just my take on the question.
Great. Thank you, Elizabeth.
And I just want to piggyback off of what Elizabeth said, is that people have, they're uncomfortable talking to people with disabilities. I think the training should be done as much as possible by people with disabilities.
Good point.
So that just to sort of internalize that message to professors, that you're not just teaching, you're not just giving the person with a disability an accommodation to give them something. You're giving them the accommodation so that they will be contributing and teaching and, having jobs and things like that.
Great point. Thank you, Amy.
This is Alan. Approaching this from two different lenses. So they've spoken about from a personal perspective, how do you educate faculty? From my perspective as in Disability Services Office, I think it is the Disability Services Office responsibility to be educating and to be connecting with faculty, and not incumbent upon the students to do so, because that's asking a lot of our, and not everybody's as comfortable. So there's this piece of their personal, like students sharing their personal story and message, and how do they to work with a faculty member, that okay, but the general of education of the office, how to work with an individual and how it uses accommodations, that needs to come from the university, because I think far too often it's kind of like we would just rely on the students to do it. And if a student is not as comfortable talking about it, if their student is not as empowered to be a self-advocate, then they're not going to get the things they need. They're not going to be comfortable speaking up. I found that regular contact professors need to know who the office is, need to be able to think of somebody, their name, their face, like their voice, like, and when they think about disability services, so that they will be more likely to reach out. So it's building relationships with the academic units, going regularly to their departmental meetings. Professors listen to other professors more, so develop those allies, work with them, and then slowly that'll spread. Because far too often, I think both Elizabeth, or I think Elizabeth spoke on it first, that they don't, like the professor says, they never experienced something before, or they have, or their one experience is a negative experience. So they think they apply that experience to all. So we need to be constantly communicating, constantly making sure that we're establishing and defining what it means to be working with a student, what it means to be a student with a disability at the university, to make sure that they're doing what they need to be doing, versus kind of having their own, bringing their own biases and bringing in their own experience and defining disability themselves. So.
Thank you, Alan. Does anyone else want to chime in?
Yeah, so as a freshman at a small liberal arts college, I'm still new to everything, but we usually get a blue paper, or I've just been emailing my teachers my accommodations because of, online classes. And I haven't had any problems yet with, talking to my professors about my accommodations and, what I need to be successful in class. But I'm just very transparent with my professors about, how I learn best. After I put my accommodations, I probably, I put down a little, even though it says like need a note taker, I say, the reason why I need a note taker. And, it's easier for me just to listen to, the lecture and then have the notes after class instead of me trying to write down the notes and listening, because then I won't be able to understand what's going on. So having them understand why I need my accommodations, and, that I'm still a student who's there to learn and everything like everybody else, that it really opens up the door and they're like, oh, okay, here, I'll, make sure I get your notes for you and stuff like that. I think it really helps the student and the professor have a good relationship and be able to be successful in the class.
Thank you, Nick.
Thank you.
Nance, do you want to chime in with your experiences? How you think best to educate? If not, that's fine.
I think professors would be help a lot if they knew more people with disabilities. I think professors would be helped a lot if they knew more people with disabilities. I remember one professor I had said that disabled people made her feel uncomfortable, and I'm like, I can not believe you just said that. I remember when Professor had said that disabled people made her feel uncomfortable, and I'm like, I cannot believe you just said that.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Thank you, Lance. I see that Marie wants to make a comment. If Marie wants to turn on her mic, please feel free.
Hi, everyone. This is Marie. I'm the Assistant Director at the Disability Resource Center at Montclair State University. I just wanted to thank Naomi for having this webinar. I think that it is really important for all of us here to hear about the experiences of our students and what access they have to technology that equalizes the classroom for them. I want to thank you. I want to thank Amy and Elizabeth for being part of this, for answering my emails so that they could be a part of this. And I appreciate just learning more about their stories before they got to Montclair. And thank you to Alan, who's a colleague of mine, and to learn more about his story too. I think that for him to be able to participate on this shows students that, look what he's able to do now, learning from his experience, and to be a mentor to others and to share his story, to be to show where he's come from and how far he's come from because of his experiences, and now he's able to give back. And that's such a wonderful thing to do in our field. I think that's one of the greatest things about our field, especially, is that to be providing opportunities for students with disabilities who may not be able to have educational opportunities because of somebody denying them access, or whether any part of our processes denies them access to it. Being able to work in an department that advocates for equal access is such a, what do I say? Forgive me, it's Thursday afternoon and my brain is not as functional as it would be on Monday, but it's such a wonderful thing to be a part of. And for 16 years, I've been doing this work, and honestly, it's such rewarding work. And in a time during a major pandemic where everyone is impacted, my biggest hope is that one of the lessons that everyone can walk away from this is to just be kinder and to just be more flexible and to just be more understanding that everyone struggles, whether you are disabled or whether you are not. There are life circumstances that could make us feel as if we are. And we don't know the stories behind the people that we meet every day. And to just be mindful that everyone struggles. And we should just be helping each other on a daily basis, instead of judging, instead of, you know, making hurdles or making obstacles for other people. So if there is a way that we can help, I think that honestly, you know, it might sound a little bit Pollyanna, but it it really does make the world just a tiny bit better in a time that we just feel we could we at times we just feel helpless. So I want to thank everybody that is here and sharing their experiences, and I look forward to just keep continuing the work. So thank you.
Thank you, Marie, for sharing. I appreciate that. And I agree, if we can, or just be a little bit kinder. It's time. Are there any other thoughts or questions that people have with our fine group of panelists before we sign off? I have one other question. What is the one thing that you will want people to know about disability?
For me, I want people to know that it's a different ability, not a disability. So, you know, people with disabilities can do things just like everyone else. You just do it a little different. It may just be, you know, like an extra screen reader to do it, but we're just like you guys, you know, we're human. So just remember that.
I love that. Thank you.
I want people to know that the disability is not that you can't see or you can't walk or you can't read. The disability is that society doesn't have braille books, or that society doesn't have wheelchair ramps, or that society doesn't have things that in place that are accessible to all. That's the real disability.
Nicely put. Thank you.
And that's like, again, Amy, you're just a really easy person to follow. Like, to be human is to be different. The problem is not that we are different. The problem is that the world is designed for a limited few. And that is the issue. But also, like, so my work is not because like I want to be helpful to people with disabilities. My work is because I've seen that there are problems, and I want to fix those problems to allow an individual who is different to be able to be the student they know they can be. So like when I'm not here, I don't infantilize people with disabilities. I think that happens far too often. People with disabilities who are disabled do not need to be helped. They need the world to be fixed so that they can be themselves and not have to constantly struggle through everything. And they need to be heard often, a lot of the time. Just like a quick quote that we give to those students that we meet with: "Let me hold the door for you. I may never have traveled in your shoes, but I could see your soles are worn and your strength is torn under the weight of a story I have never lived before. Let me hold the door for you. After all you've pushed through, it's the least I can do." And that's something we need to remember. And I think Marie said it. When we meet with somebody, we don't know what they've been doing. We don't know what they did to get to that point in that day. But we need to be ready to hear them and understand that what we meet, who is in front of us, is a story, is somebody who, and they have a story, we need to hear that and make sure that we can be there as an individual, as an institution, and help them accomplish what they're trying to do.
Nice. Thank you, Alan, for that.
I just want to say that like I'm still here learning like everybody else is. I'm still in class. Just because I learn a little bit differently doesn't mean anything. You know, I'm still going to school. I'm in college now. I never thought I would be. So, but yeah, I just want everyone to know, you know, I've made so many friends, and half the time they don't even know I'm dyslexic or anything. And then it just comes up when I'm, you know, have my audiobooks out or something. So, um, yeah, my teachers are still, you know, my professors are like, you know, he's here wanting to learn. You know, there's no reason why he shouldn't be. So just keep pushing through.
Great. Thank you, Nick.
I would like to give a word of warning to people without disabilities. I would like to give a word of warning to people without disabilities. You should work to make the world more accessible because disability is a universal experience. Everyone, if they live long enough, will become disabled. So it's to your advantage to work to make the world better for disabled people. Now, you should work to make the world more accessible because disability is a universal experience. Everyone, if they live long enough, will become disabled. So it's to your advantage to work to make the world better for disabled people now.
Thank you, Leon. I so agree with you. You just never know. I want to thank the panelists for all coming. Thank you. You guys did a great job. Thank you.
Thank you for the invite.
Thank you, Naomi, for the opportunity.
And thank you all for being so brave and sharing your story. I know I wouldn't want to share my story. So thank you so much. You guys have been amazing. And thank you for everyone who came. And if no one has anything else, it's a wrap. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you, Naomi, and thanks to the other panelists.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You too.